Hey everyone. You guys can hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you beautifully, Herwig. We're super excited to have you today. And thank you for the people in the audience who are just joining in. This is Jackson Blau, our Director of Business Development here at Infineo. And we're super excited to have you guys on for our real world asset tokenization space. This is where we highlight the recent trends, ongoing news, and recent developments in the security token and real world asset tokenization space. And we're very excited to be highlighting a very exciting announcement that was put out at the Benzinga conference, where Dr. Murphy actually spoke on behalf of Infineo and received the Best Insured Tech of 2024 award. But RWA Foundation actually announced their inception there. And so we're very, very honored to have them on today to talk about their mission, their goals, what they're going to be doing, their founding members, and dive deep into basically everything that the Real World Asset Foundation is doing. So we're super excited to have on Herwig from RWAF. Herwig, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners and give a little background?
Yeah, with pleasure. No, thanks for having us. Love these spaces. We've been on before, not for the foundation, but actually for Security Token Market, who is the organization behind the RWA Foundation. And for those of you who don't know Security Token Market, we've been in the space for about 8 years now, advising clients on tokenization. We have a website where you can go and track all the different tokenized assets. We've got over 40 billion different bonds, debt, equities, funds, real estate. It's all on there. So you can go check out a lot of great research and reports. And we do a weekly podcast called the Security Token Show. So let's just say I'm a diehard tokenization guy all the way back to we first called them security tokens during the 2016 days. And today we felt really, this year, we felt that there was a cataclysmic shift, a paradigm shift, really, in tokenization, where, I think a lot of people were disappointed by the initial excitement not translating. We saw a couple, hotels and student housing projects for tokenized. We saw some novel concepts, but the industry never really took off. And this year we saw the opposite, right? We didn't actually just see a lot of crypto projects that we have very successful in the day and cool use cases like Infineo and life insurance, but also many other real estate platforms that are doing very well, stocks platforms that are coming into a bridge between sort of buying RWAs is being built, obviously tokenized treasuries with the likes of BlackRock entering the space, and now Franklin Templeton and Ondo and many others are also doing very well in that category. So we see a new era for tokenization, sort of not a what if anymore. It's here and happening. And we felt that specifically for the foundation that crypto natives were being left behind in the conversation in terms of how to take advantage of this growing narrative. I think many folks in crypto understand RWAs and tokenization, but ultimately, they're excited right now, of course, about the actual crypto space with many exciting things around Bitcoin and altcoins in general. At the end of the day, when they take their gains, they're going to want to have some kind of stability. And stable coins give you no yields. And I think RWAs are the perfect bridge in between to offer you some kind of stability, yield, and a way to kind of exit potentially any kind of crypto positions. Not to mention that if in 5 to 10 years we have BlackRock, DTCC, and all the same, JP Morgan and all the same big players running capital markets, the new operating system will be on blockchain, but it will be controlled by them. And we're not really much better off than what Satoshi imagined, 15 plus years ago. So we think the foundation has a real critical role to play as becoming the decentralized community for RWAs to not only onboard crypto natives into the RWA sector, but vice versa, onboard assets into RWAs and also decentralize the infrastructure. And so we're going to have a lot of conversations and pushing a lot of resources around governance tokens and native tokens related to, RWA protocols and tokenization engines, and a lot of the successful tokens we've seen today. So very long-winded introduction of what the RWA Foundation is all about. And I'm excited to get into it with everybody. Thanks for having me.
Of course, Herwig. That was a great introduction, and I think really got into exactly why we're here. For those that don't have context, Herwig was one of the people that actually introduced me to tokenization back in 2021 through Security Token Market. And if you don't follow their content, you should. It's the best in the industry. They have the most up-to-date reports, and analysis and industry news. And we'll be sure to dive into that after we cover a little bit more on the Real World Asset Foundation and the Real World Asset Foundation DAO. And so, as Herwig kind of got at the beginning here, this is really a way to bring crypto native individuals into traditional finance and really just promote the adoption of blockchain. And so, from how I understand it, there's going to be a couple key features to the Real World Asset Foundation DAO, which are going to be governance tokens and potentially loyalty perks. And I'd love to just hear how you're thinking about implementing those and providing those to the foundation. And is it going to be for the foundation's members or for foundation token holders? Or I'm really just curious. It seems incredible. I'd love to hear how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, we spent the last sort of 5 months putting this together, recognizing that, yes, at the end of the day, this community is meant to be for crypto natives, run by crypto natives. And we have some exciting plans, with a DAO, as you referenced, to sort of be able to accomplish that. But at the end of the day, in order to get anything accomplished, we need to work with the leading brands and infrastructure in the space, right? All the leading L1s and L2s where assets are being put on chain, the marketplaces and regulated platforms that are helping, facilitate that in the first place, right? And we're seeing all kinds of new applications of RWAs, especially when it comes to DeFi, that you can sort of leverage this technology, but then also take advantage of governance tokens themselves. So, I'm sure everyone who's in the RWA space has been following it, but if you haven't, have seen the success of some platforms like Ondo, Maple and Proppy and others are all very successful use cases of not just RWA platforms, but also platforms that have a native token related to it, either for some kind of governance capability within their ecosystem or a buy and burn model, popular as well, where it allows, users to get exposure to revenue, let's say, to the infrastructure without actually getting it directly, but indirectly, because the revenue is, instead of paid out as a distribution, used to buy back the native team, therefore creating market pressure that would, in theory, increase the price, right? So over time. So it's a very interesting space. And I think a lot of startups and crypto native organizations in the RWA space will gain a competitive edge by leveraging this governance token model, especially as we see more and more incumbents move into the space that are less likely, to do something like this, right? So for sure, one of the ways we plan to harness all of this is by eating our own dog food. So naturally, we're going to be launching a DAO by the fountain to basically create a token ecosystem that can help incentivize the adoption of RWAs in the crypto economy and create that bridge that we're kind of referring to. We'll be doing a lot of, that's why we call it the RWA Foundation, because we are following the model as other foundations, just not for one single application or protocol. RWAs are multi-chain, right? As we've been seeing increasingly. We just saw Biddle for BlackRock jump to a bunch of different chains. Ondo's USDY and Benji from Franklin Templeton are on, I think, 5+ different chains. So we believe it's a multi-chain world. We also see it as, we're talking about dozens of asset classes, from commodities to debt to real estate to private and public equity, everything in between, life insurance, precious metals, the list goes on, of what could be tokenized here. And it's fragmented around the world, right, by geography and relation, as well as even its use case. So we believe a foundation is necessary to be able to kind of unify what is a very fragmented narrative, that, there's some collaboration here and there, but there isn't really again, decentralized community that represents the sector. And so that's why we have to partner up, again, with the leading brands in the space, to kind of go down the list. The marketplace route, we got Securitize, INX, T0 in the US. We've got in the UK, Archax and Bricken, in Singapore, IXSwap and Shinta. Got also popular brands like Maple and Mountain Protocol from the stablecoin front, Proppy, Realty, MetaWealth as well on the real estate front. Not to mention some of the infrastructure like Chronicle Labs, Credora, obviously Security Token Market. We've even got some VC firms that are interested in supporting the space, like Neoclassic Capital, Fina Ventures, and we've also got many others in the works. Stellar and Polygon just joined. We've also got Avalanche, and Polymesh and Provenance as founding members. So we're really trying to bring the whole ecosystem together. And ultimately, the way we plan to roll out is, of course, by airdropping to all of our partners, launching the DAO, hopefully soon. I can't say much more than that. And of course, as you mentioned and alluded to, Jackson, starting to roll out whatever initiatives we can that could encourage adoption, right? So whether it be some kind of perks so that if you're a token holder, you can now benefit from potentially reduced trading fees or asset management fees, maybe receive a first look at new RWA deal flow, get better rates on lending platforms. The sky's the limit, really. Obviously, you'll be getting discounts and benefits I tokenize this and STM related content. So, it can really go on. But then, of course, we anticipate the community to also start to develop, a grant program that we can start to award to different asset tokenizers or to different infrastructure that's helping bridge the gap, right? To make sure that there are more assets on chain or more liquidity or more technology that's missing. And we're actually also going to be forming many working groups and many sort of programs, again, encourage resources, events, education, best practices for the space, everything that you would see a foundation normally do. But what we think is missing is one for the web, for the RWA space in Web3. And so that's what we're all about.
Herwig, that's incredible, and I'm just so excited for the launch of the foundation. Your guys' founding members are really just top tier, cream of the crop in the tokenization and blockchain space. You've done such a great job curating the group, and I'm very excited to see the rollout of the DAO and the different initiatives that are going to be led by the DAO in the tokenization industry to drive adoption, and the loyalty perks that'll be given to the different holders in the DAO. And so very excited to see all that roll out. And don't worry, I won't pressure you for a date. We we know it's coming. I would like to dive in a little more into some of the initiatives that the DAO is planning to steer, specifically in how you're going to try and promote standardization and ecosystem growth. How do you see the DAO really spinning up initiatives, or what are some examples of some initiatives that you think the DAO going to be able to work on that can help standardize the industry and promote ecosystem growth?
Yeah, one of the big trends we're seeing, whether you're a DAO, a foundation, a stablecoin, or just a crypto native itself, we want to introduce this concept of treasury management and financial management with RWAs. This is an opportunity to take advantage of these real world assets that have a stable yield to them or some kind of stable appreciation potentially to them. That makes it far less risky to have your entire portfolio uh, stuck to something that could be volatile, right? And most crypto natives never really want to go back into the old world. So if you want to stay on chain, stable coins are a great example. I think they've proven themselves as sort of a use case within the sector. I think it's only going to grow from there in terms of the different elements and ways that people can use on-chain assets for portfolio management. So we're going to be working with our members to show how this can be done, how people are using it for treasury management, creating different portfolios, and support, putting that information out there so that people can also learn how to use RWAs, because still to this day, education is one of those biggest gaps, right? And thanks to crypto, we might be able to attach a lot of cool gamification, whether it's with airdrops, whether it's with perks, like you mentioned, whether it's with these different mechanics that could actually directly incentivize RWA adoption, right? If you want to take advantage of this perk, maybe hold enough of these tokens, or if a RWA company decides to issue a governance token, you'll probably hold their RWAs that they've issued, the assets on chain that they've already issued, right? I don't want to say that Infineo is doing anything like that, but there'd be an easy example of, if you maybe tokenize, I'll see, if Infineo were to launch a governance token one day, maybe that's how you qualify, right? So these are cool mechanics that can incentivize actual adoption, potentially seed real liquidity eventually for RWAs, for on-chain asset markets, because as we know, since 2021, despite the excitement around the market, it's still been slow growing, and especially when it comes to the secondary market, right? There is no Bitcoin product in RWAs that trades to the volume and degree, the same way. That's just not happening yet. So if tomorrow, again, purely hypothetical, Michael Saylor, who was not hypothetically, but actually was on Altcoin Daily recently, hyping up why tokenization is the future. He was saying, why should an Apple stock trade 24/7, 365, right? So if he gets it, and he were to one day say, hey, MicroStrategy is now going to trade as an RWA and delist from NASDAQ because he wants to remove all the naked short selling that's happening. Well, that's a rock star product, right? That will force millions and millions of people to get into the RWA markets. But that's one of those things we're missing that hopefully we as a foundation can also help encourage and incentivize folks like Michael Saylor to consider doing something like that, so that we see, better products in the market. We've talked to the concept of, again, this idea that hopefully we can encourage even grants to support that, so people now have more means to bring these tokens to market. And we are playing with a very exciting concept. It doesn't take too far, but I won't reveal too much yet because there'll be a big official announcement about it and a lot of details in the white paper. But you could, imagine what I was saying earlier about treasury management practices and how you can use RWAs to better do that. Well, obviously, again, I like to eat my own dog food, drink my own champagne, probably better analogy is, of course, you can imagine that the DAO will leverage similar mechanics of leveraging RWAs for treasury management. So there's a lot of cool community components. We've already seen Arbitrum and Athena and several other crypto native, applications start to leverage treasury management with RWAs. So that's one of those cool things we're going to see. But I could keep going and going, Jackson, but pause there.
Of course. And that is something that we're very into at Infineo. So I love that that is going to be a big strategic initiative for the DAO is treasury management with real world assets, because that's really how we view life insurance. We view it as a real great way to help people manage different cash, essentially, whether it's a stable coin that is investing in fixed income assets or an individual that typically has funds tied up in a savings account and earning next to nothing. Life insurance can serve as a really good alternative cash management, and most people aren't familiar with that. And so, helping get the industry to adopt life insurance as a treasury management tool will definitely be needed. And so, we're very excited to work closely. And exactly how you mentioned, we could definitely release a governance token. We are well aware and are currently working on something. We can't get too much into it right now, but let's just say we should talk a little deeper about that offline. And
Love it.
for today, I would love to hear a little bit about any art. So you've talked a little bit about in the tweets I've seen come out about expanding use cases for RWAs. We've seen a lot right now of tokenized treasuries, real estate, and as you know, we at Infineo are tokenizing life insurance. But are there any specific use cases for tokenization that the DAO is planning to try and support and incentivize? Or is it really just as they come up and as you see market demand?
It's definitely a combination of both, right? We definitely want to encourage all asset tokenization where it makes sense, and it almost always does make sense. We do believe in a completely on-chain world when it comes to finance in the next decade or two. But of course, the market needs to adopt and grow a certain way, right? There's a reason that stable coins and now treasuries next, as we go down the risk curve, are the most popular use cases for RWA tokenization. So these Lego blocks that are needed for finance, where cash as a settlement tool or treasuries backing the on-chain dollar systems, these are going to be critical in why they are being prioritized, because again, we're rebuilding the new operating system of capital markets. We need to now rebuild what are now very large capital legacy systems, let's say, in capital markets that are built around money transfer, depository agents, and treasury and money market fund type mechanics. So that's where we're going to see a lot of continuous growth. But that narrative is sexy to talk about from a macro perspective, but it doesn't do much for the average person. I think certain crypto natives are excited about being able to, especially international folks, to be able to tap into something like Open Eden, and that's where you can get treasury bill exposure from the US, a very powerful use case. But I think it's going to become only more powerful when you start to see DeFi extend into it. And that's what we saw recently happen with Biddle and Elixir on Avalanche. I think Open Eden did it for their T-bills. But this concept of setting up vaults backed by RWAs means you can start to kind of leverage the composability of DeFi and start to kind of slowly, in a regulated manner, have brought people who own an asset compliantly into a, DeFi infrastructure, whether they want to do staking, borrowing, lending, and all that other good stuff that they might be able to tap into. So once that happens, I call it the genie's out of the bottle, cat's out of the bag, because real estate is the largest asset class in the world that absolutely loves refinancing and leverage and debt models, and is a hard asset that can be appraised and very easier to sort of manage from a fund perspective or from an investment perspective. So I'm very excited for, when it comes to a trend, let's say, Jackson, that I think, smart contracts when it comes to the application of borrowing and lending are just an absolute game changer for all of finance. That's, again, where DeFi plays a big role, and where RWA tokenization is going to see a massive surge in growth, where eventually it'll obviously be much bigger than crypto as a whole. And so this is one of those big surges we saw in DeFi in the past for crypto. There's no reason we won't expect to see the same thing for RWAs, where we see a massive surge in growth of assets on chain because everybody wants to go and take a loan out against them. It's really as simple as that.
And I mean, with real world assets, it's just a no brainer. They are such better collateral than most other cryptocurrencies and digital assets. I mean, they're really the pinnacle of collateral for borrowing and lending. And so when people think about using platforms like Aave, it's just natural that real world assets fit in right there. And so I completely understand what you mean. And I'm super bullish on that as well, personally. We were next going to talk about the path forward for the Real World Asset Foundation, some of the upcoming initiatives around community engagement. You've already talked a lot about the grant programs, and or about the grant programs, but I'd love to talk. You hinted at the educational events that you plan on having, and I'd love to know what sort of are those going to be with specific asset issuers? Are those going to be more high level for people just trying to get into the space? I'm just curious what of events that you're going to be looking to host with the Real World Asset Foundation.
No, that's a great question around community, right? And that's something that we do at STM already. So we're just looking to turbocharge this. So you'll be seeing a lot of the same concepts. We plan to do a lot of webinars and create a lot of resources and guides and information out there to bring together an adoption around RWAs, but mostly the asterisk being that, again, we're focused on crypto natives really exclusively with this. So you might see a webinar with STM, with Moody's, and some sort of institutional assets. Here we're talking about Aave and how you can maybe bring eventually real estate onto the blockchain to leverage something like that. So that's exactly what we're looking to do in a sort of different mold, if you will, Jackson. But it's exciting because obviously when crypto people are used to, crypto natives are used to Telegram, they're used to crypto Twitter. And it's a much easier way to engage with those folks as opposed to TradFi and the types that we might also interface with at STM. So you can expect a lot of the usual campaigns and a lot of the usual types of webinars, but we'll be doing a lot more contests. We'll be looking to gamify it a lot more with our partners who either have their own governance or we can bring in merch, or potentially eventually even RWAs themselves, the assets on chain, right? Republic, a way to airdrop tokens using their regulatory license. Republic is one of our partners. So it's not hard to start putting the dots together of what one could imagine the foundation can do with its partners. And you can probably assume that we're thinking about doing it. We're obviously not starting there. We just chose these founding members to show that there is a unified industry out there. But we anticipate growing our membership a lot more with other great RWA firms, right? Sounds like Infineo will be another good fit. And that's where we can expect to really start to amplify and scale what we can do to address those communities, create interoperability between them, which we think is a very important initiative for RWAs to help run tide, lift all ships, all boats, right? So it's a lot of those kinds of cool mechanics on top of what we can do on the crypto side with airdrops and encouraging infrastructure and more assets on chain with grant programs and things like that.
That's incredible, Herwig. And you will catch me at both events, the FTM and Real World Asset Foundation ones. They sound very exciting and like they're going to provide a ton of value to the ecosystem and industry. So very excited to see those rolled out. And you did hit on one last topic that I'd love to just dive into a little bit, the plans for increasing interoperability and promoting liquid markets. It's really, from my experience in the tokenization industry, been the biggest issue right now is that, right as you hinted at earlier, there isn't a ton of secondary market right now. And so do you see this as a way to continue increasing that secondary market liquidity? And do you have any specific plans around that right now?
I can't reveal anything regarding specific plans, to directly see. But you get the idea for sure that we'll be look up these at between our members, right? And there's interoperability on numerous levels. First, it's the asset interoperability across multiple chains. The idea that I can take that same asset and go between different applications or different markets is very exciting, not just for the innovation and utility, but also from the market trading capacity, right? We know arbitrage and these kinds of mechanics encourage liquidity and create market activity because obviously there's a spread opportunity between potentially one DEX and another DEX or one SEX and another SEX that's listing the same RWA. So that's very exciting.
That was kind of exact. That was what I was really hoping. When I was at Security Token Market, we had the opportunity to arbitrage security token between T0 and Securitize, and it was an extremely manual process. Let's just put it that way. A lot of emails, a lot of waiting, and it would be super nice if the industry had tools to essentially bridge between these different marketplaces, essentially when they don't have full custody wallets, and so. I was curious if you saw Asset Foundation potentially helping solve those sort of industry issues.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We want to address the industry and the community feedback are the biggest challenges, and that's obviously one of them. But then it all tends to fall back towards again a decentralized infrastructure, which is where again this concept of governance tokens for RWAs really comes in. We believe this is going to be a big sector for the 2025 cycle, and this is actually a great means to potentially also create forms of liquidity, incentives to hold tokens, participation and decentralization of the technology itself, faster innovation as a result, right? So we're excited. There's a couple of companies that we have our eye on that we know are going to introduce some very big concepts around that. But we also are talking to many others that don't have tokens. Some of the biggest in the space, you can imagine. Some, all of them are members that don't have a governance token yet. You can believe that we're probably going to be pushing them to go that direction because we think it's a great way to interface with crypto natives. It's a great way to decentralize your technology and even gamify it. But more importantly, to truly tap into DeFi and to stick to the mission of blockchain. Really, decentralized markets. This is the only way forward. So it is definitely going to be a critical element. We're going to be pushing on top of liquidity, interoperability, more assets on chain, even policy where we can, play in that part, not necessarily with a deep philosophy, but a wide philosophy for encouraging RWA clarity and adoption. So we're excited, Jackson. We're very excited.
We're all super excited at Infineo, and me personally, I'm elated and cannot wait to see the programs that are rolled. And so with this, I'd love to talk a little bit about the founding of the DAO. And so it's my understanding, or at least how I learned about the DAO was through Security Token Market. And it is my understanding that the DAO the Real World Asset Foundation DAO is being launched by Security Token Market. And I'd love to just understand the story behind that, security token markets involvement and motivation, and how they're going to be involved with the DAO moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, this is definitely the brainchild of the team here. We've been thinking about this for quite some time, actually, since the early half of the year. And this is to be very clear, definitely set up and created by Security Token Market, and many of the team will be operating it, even though I am recruiting our own team right now for this. But ultimately, are separate organizations. So we actually came up with this notion again for what I said originally when we first started out, which is we feel that crypto natives are being left behind. and that they are not really being properly addressed when it comes to this narrative, right? A lot of people think, oh, you can tokenize, say, a piece of property, and then suddenly a bunch of crypto natives are going to buy it. And that's just not true. And that requires education both towards crypto natives about the benefits of RWAs, but also education towards the asset tokenizers and the infrastructure on how to engage with DeFi and with crypto natives ultimately, like governance tokens and other models. So that was really where the inception came from. Said, we want to take advantage of this trend of governance tokens that's being. STM didn't really have a good application itself for how to sort of decentralize our our platform, right? We're a data aggregator that we already report publicly for free. I don't know how much more on chain we can really decentralize that, but I'm certain that we will explore that down the road. But what we did realize is that there was no industry voice for crypto natives when it came to RWAs. It's just like we saw with events. It's typically a panel or an offshoot of a crypto event. There was no dedicated event. So we launched Tokenize This. Same thing for crypto, the economy and the infrastructure, right? For many chains, this is just another sector that they're trying to look at. And because it's different asset classes and different regions and different use cases, it's just become very, very fragmented. And so we felt that a DAO and a foundation specifically would be the best suited to support the industry. And that's sort of why we went down that road and why we called it the RWA Foundation. As you know me from Security Token Market, I tend to be pretty on the nose when it comes to branding. But I am very excited to introduce, it gets the point across, but I'm excited to introduce our mascot here, Wally, the elephant that everybody sees. Wally is the elephant in the room, if you will. And he knows how big RWAs are going to be. And that's also why we chose an elephant, because of their size, which RWAs represent in potential, but also in their wisdom, right? These are smart, intelligent creatures and assets. RWAs are smart assets. And not to mention that, of course, they are a family unit. They act as a herd. They go from, watering hole to watering hole together. So they are a community like animal. And therefore, we think elephants don't just represent the foundation, but really the whole sector as a whole. And we love Wally's glasses. He only sees markets go up. So
I love Wally, and I love the rationale behind choosing an elephant. That was my first time hearing that, and I think it fits perfectly. And I think Wally is going to be the perfect mascot for the RWA industry as it continues to. So very excited to continue seeing more of Wally. Herwig, I'd love to shift gears a little bit, just for people that may not be as familiar with, but maybe joining for a little more of the tokenization insights that we're looking to share in these spaces. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about what's been going on at Security Token Market recently. You guys recently put out your market report where you're tracking over 46 billion in market cap for real world assets. And I'd love to just hear about potentially any of your key takeaways from the last month in the tokenization industry. I know that we saw some lower trading volumes, but I would love to just hear any key takeaways from your end.
yeah, trading though remains low across the board in general. One of the big things we're looking to do, and another sort of sneak peek announcement only heard here, is that we are going to be releasing a new version of STM enough to. And the big distinctions is recognizing between primary and secondary markets. There's just either a lack of education or just a lack of user interface designed for this when it comes to all of the data solutions out there that track this space. So we want to sort of help make it very clear between, fund products where people might be investing and subscribing and redeeming to get out, as opposed to actually trading their interest as an LP, which is happening to pretty much a 0 degree. But there's a whole lot of redemptions and subscriptions happening, which is what we're seeing with products like Biddle, Benji, Ondos, USDY, and OUSG, and a lot of the other players that we track on the marketplace. So you're going to see that sector continue to grow because it is one that is the most exciting for TradFi. That's why you're seeing, a whole lot of new. For those of you who don't know it, out of those that I mentioned, there's also several other trillion-dollar asset managers: Aberdeen, Legal Enroll, and just pretty much every other single one that's looking at it. Coinbase Asset Management is looking at their own money market fund, and there are many, many more that I'm just blanking on right now. But you get the idea that this is an important, as I said, Lego block, building block for new capital markets. This is where JPM coin originally was built out of its success to just move money internally around between the bank, the globally, and that was a very big deal given JPM's size. And then it's just a sort of since spread. And now financial institutions are recognizing this benefit, but they're also recognizing the demand. In principle, stable coins, if there's 200 billion of them almost out there, um, well, I think all of us would agree in this room that we'd like to see 200 billion in on-chain reserves, right? It's one thing to get an audit and say, hey, we have these reserves, but that's still not live in real time. Whereas if I see a stable coin that's one-to-one buy one of these money market funds at or Benji, right now, suddenly I can trust this a whole lot more. And if you were to kind of look at traditional markets, there's about $2 in treasuries circulating for every $1 in circulation. So in principle, we might actually need to see a market of about 400 billion in treasuries, even though not even 3 billion today, out of the 200 billion. So there's a whole lot of market share to go there. And then eventually, I think the business of stablecoins itself is under siege, because why would we ever use a stablecoin when we could just use the Benji product directly for transactions and settlement and payments? Because the concept of idle cash would be a cardinal sin in an on-chain future where RWAs are everywhere offering you yield. You really should never be having anything just sitting as a single dollar unless it's some kind of currency hedge. But not here to go down Rev road. But you can kind of see that next year we expect trend to continue to surge. Stable coins will grow, money markets and treasuries will grow, but you're also going to see real estate, precious metals. And I think the biggest one that no one's talking about right now that will be center stage next year is tokenized stocks. We saw this as very popular back in the FTX days when this was happening. We're now seeing with the likes of Denari, Swarm, Docker, and many others tokenizing NVIDIA and S&P 500 and all kinds of other products. I think we're going to see this market start booming up again next year for demand for products like this internationally, as well as the 24/7, 365 trading capabilities, the arbitrage elements that get introduced. So very, very exciting times ahead, but secondary markets still have ways to go. As I said, unless there's rock star products that bring in a huge influx of users, I think it's going to be slow growth still throughout 2025. Won't have slow growth is RWA governance tokens, right? And that liquid unregulated sector will see immense trading volume, probably thousands and tens of thousands of times over compared to the actual RWA marks. Just look at Ondo's trading volume, and you can compare that to what we've tracked, and it's, significantly larger already. So that's where we see the market headed is, we see growth assets on chain, we see the market still one day being completely on chain, growing quite fast. In fact, much, much larger than many of the McKinsey's and Boston Consulting Groups have put out. We'll put a report out of our own to kind of counter that. But end of the day, we're still in the very early days. Just people don't have a capacity for how fast the adoption will be over the next couple of years from here on out. So we're obviously bullish. You got to take it for a grain of salt, but this is just our 2 cents.
No, I completely agree with you, Herwig, and I think that was very well put. I mean, if you guys haven't checked out the STM monthly report, I'm going to put that as a pin tweet here so you can go and check that out and bookmark that. When I was looking at the report, though, we or something you've mentioned has been about really getting rockstar assets tokenized. And an exciting development that I think has happened in the token space was Republic really committing to tokenize some of their offerings and fundraising. And while they're obviously not the equivalent of a MicroStrategy's stock being completely issued on chain, they really do have some exciting early stage offerings. And I think that can be seen through the performance of their token, their Republic note, which was actually the best performing token last month. I believe it was up like 140% or something. I would love if you could just speak a little bit to what Republic is doing in the industry, and what it could potentially mean, and what their token is potentially. Herwig, you there?
So Republic is an awesome company. I'm glad you brought. They are also one of our founding members, but they are basically the biggest Reg CF platform, and what that stands for is regulation crowdfunding, which here in the United States was a new concept that was introduced back in 2015, 2016 when it was codified. And so it's grown slowly. I think only a few billion, if that. I know it's over a billion. I don't know if it's 2 billion, has been raised through Reg CF in the United States, which basically means that instead of IPOing or instead of only raising money from sophisticated, rich investors, you could raise money from anybody. And that was not possible before. They did limit you to originally a million, now it's 5 million. So hence, if you can only raise 5 million at a time, why even $1 billion is a big deal, even though it's well over that. So the market's starting to grow, and Republic has been one of the leading brands to enable that. All kinds of cool companies and startups across real estate and biotech and technology and SaaS and you name it. They've really featured just everything at this point and made it possible for the everyday investor to get access to this. And that's a really cool concept. That's a lot of what RWAs are all about, democratizing access to a lot of these investments that weren't possible and available before. And Republic actually did something really cool. Not only do they have them custody, by the way, so if you want a wallet that can hold RWAs and other crypto, Republic's got you on that if you want to check it out. But they also have a crypto arm and they do a lot of advisory and they do tokenization themselves. And they're actually acquiring INX, although I think that might have through, but they obviously have their eye on not just fundraising, but a secondary market too. And one of the cool things that they did in the token space is they launched a Republic Note. And the Republic Note basically represents a small interest in every single company that's money. I think it's over 140 on Republic itself. They've raised $billions for startups because they also do non-Reg CF funding as well. So needless to say, they have a great distribution. They've helped a lot of companies raise money. And they take not just a cash fee, but a small little interest, whether it's the shares or I think it's usually a note, a convertible note that they put into the company itself as part of their fee. And now they have housed that underneath this convertible note or this Republic note. So you can imagine this Republic note has 140 different companies in it with a small, interest exposure. It's just pretty cool. And the model, the mechanic that they have is also really cool. You can actually go see this on their website. You can go see the companies and how it works. But the way the note works, how you get paid is actually, they do a distribution every time there's 2 million accumulated by the note. It's just automatically distributed. So let's just say one of the companies sells or they get a distribution themselves or something like that. You can actually see it. I don't think I'd hit 2 million, but they have gained some distributions or they've harvested the portfolio, if you will, a little bit. So they're not quite at 2 million, but as soon as it hits 2 million, boom, that 2 million will then be paid out to token holders, to the note holders, the Republic note holders, pro rata. And every time this happens, it just resets, gets up to 2 million, and then once again spits out. And I think it actually continues to grow with new companies from Republic. I'm not sure about that one. But you would imagine that maybe if they make 4.5 million, let's say, out of one deal, well then what 2 million will get filled up, paid out, 2 million will get filled up, paid out, and then the 500,000 will get filled in, and then another 1.5 million is needed from other portfolio harvesting in order to pay out the next 2 million, right? So it's a pretty cool novel structure that can only really be done thanks to tokenization at scale, the way that Republic is doing it. And I think it's a novel concept that other people will also start to follow, even though not quite in exact the same fashion, because obviously Republic is pretty unique. So hopefully I covered your question.
Yeah, that was perfect, Herwig. And let's put it this way, and this is not financial advice, but I'm going to be going back and checking out the Republic Note after that. They should have you on their team. That was great, and I'm super excited about everything they've done, and I think it's reflected in their token price. As I said, it's up 100% in the last month, and so investors are really starting to understand what they're doing and seeing the value in it. So I really appreciate you diving deep there on Republic. Um, did you have something else to add there, Herwig?
Well, once again, this is not any kind of official confirmation, especially because this hasn't been worked out yet. But what you could imagine that potentially if you own this Republic note, you may just qualify for the airdrop from the Foundation DAO in the future. So these types of mechanics we're going to be exploring. So it's going to be exciting times ahead, Jackson.
That's incredibly exciting and even more of a reason to go and check out the Republic Node. I believe that's trading on INX1. If anyone listening does want to go check that out. And as we move into our, I guess it'll most likely be our last topic or two of the conversation today. I would love to just hear any key recent developments in terms of regulation that you've seen. You guys do such a great job at security token market of staying up to date with the global regulatory status and developments in terms of tokenization and on-chain securities. And I'm curious if over the last month that there's been any regulation developments that you think are worth highlighting.
I think when it comes to the U.S., all eyes are on policy. Obviously, Trump's team, and obviously the Congress being sort of more favorable for him. All eyes are expected on him and expected to sort of see something pass in that regard, probably by Senator Loomis or somebody, Gillibrand, because they seem to have the ear, but that'll be a lot to be revealed, sort of. I think there was a rumor, I don't know if it's official, that President Trump will be meeting with Brian Armstrong about some counsel around all of that stuff. So that would be really big. But that's really what it comes down to when it comes to new policy and new legislation, which is really what's desperately needed. Because the other thing that's going to change is, of course, we now know that Gensler is out. It really should be a shock to nobody because that was always going to be the case with the new Republican president. And I think it's a big focus around what's the new policy going to be by the new, SEC chair, specifically regarding if they will be, leading with enforcement action, which is what the current agency did, or if they will be potentially doing the opposite, introducing some kind of safe harbor or suggesting basically some kind of policy or approach to crypto that suddenly suggests that they will not necessarily be actively enforcing, those who are good actors, right? Of course, this is not a alternative bad actors, people who are committing fraud, like they should not prosecuted. But if Hester Peirce, for example, was potentially picked, not saying that she will be, but if she was, she in the past had put out a 3-year safe harbor, basically allowing you to issue a token and then have 3 years to figure out what it is. Is it decentralized enough? Is it an RWA? Like basically, is it payments token? You had 3 years to figure out what rules would end up applying to it, which would obviously be a very cool approach to, kind of the crypto markets regulation and enforcement. So it's the expectation that whoever it is probably not going to be doing any enforcement actions. And one would hope that the lawsuits against Kraken, that's Coinbase, and some of Gemini and some of the others, Uniswap, they get dropped on day one. That would be sort of what everybody hopes and a telling sign of what's to come for regulation in the U.S. In Europe, there's a lot of excitement on the recent MiCA rules, MiCA, however you want to say it, codifying and coming together. This is sort of helping create a lot of confidence in the markets over there about issuing RWAs, which is something that's missing in these and something that isn't quite clear in Singapore and in other parts of Asia, even though those are really pro and supportive jurisdictions. Same with Spain and the UK having their own sandboxes, Switzerland, and there's a lot of activity going out of Italy now with Block Invest. So you get the idea that, okay, rest around them, they may have a little bit of a head start in terms of the infrastructure now. Now, the question comes down to, can they attract the assets and the traders and the investors, if you will, to their jurisdictions in time before the U.S., continues to hold its dominance in the capital market side, especially with a new potential atmosphere and new potential rules coming to the market. Again, all this will play out over the next year or two, most likely, if considered.
That's incredible, and that's a really great insight, or great overview of the U.S. and Europe there. I'm curious if you've seen any recent success stories or developments come out of Asia or the Middle East, just as we wrap things up here.
Yeah, the Middle East is great. They're definitely super pro digital assets now, encouraging a lot of that activity across Abu Dhabi, Project Diamond, and Coinbase. We'll hopefully have a lot of news around that soon enough. Obviously, Dubai has been very forward thinking, encouraging a lot of investment and activity around tokenization. And we see some stable coins like Tether release out of there. So they definitely see potential in the Middle East market adopting stable coins. So I think that's very smart. We also saw Tether itself announce Hadron. Not sure exactly how they want us to say it, but that's their own tokenization platform, which is a big deal, obviously, given that Tether is the largest RWA tokenizer in the world, outside of JP Morgan's, repo network, that those billions of dollars a day in transactions. I think nearly a trillion, or over a trillion now. So that's a big deal to see what's going to come out of Tether in terms of their tokenization platform and who adopts that, and then if anything gets listed on Bitfinex, which is sort of Tether's sister company, even though I'm not sure if there's any official affiliation, but it's the CEO is the CTO there. That is licensed out of Kazakhstan and El Salvador, doing a lot of RWA deal there. So that's definitely something I think worth keeping an eye on. And then, as I mentioned, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, and Japan. Those are really the hotbeds of tokenization in Asia that are all worth keeping an eye on, because the regulators and the industry there have really doubled down on it and focused on it. Project Guardian out of Singapore continues to release a lot of new results, citing stuff for crypto natives, too much per se, but just a lot of activity that's going on over there. So that's hopefully a great way to end the show here.
No, that's perfect. We covered the whole world. We dove deep into the RWA Foundation, and we got into the latest with security tokens and real world asset tokenization. I don't know what else I would like to spend an hour. It was a space, Herwig, and thank you so much for joining us. As we close things out, if the audience would like to stay in contact with the Real World Asset Foundation or security token market, what's going to be the best way to do so? And are there any upcoming events or announcements we should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, everybody should definitely give us a follow right now, to stay up to date on those things, because you can imagine, very similar to many other native crypto organizations, that there's a benefit to that. You want to stay up to date on announcements and releases and things like that. Obviously, our Telegram channel, same deal. You can find that in our description on our X account. So please join us in the community, introduce yourself. And then RWAF.xyz is where you can stay updated. The real thing to stay tuned for right now is we'll be releasing highlighting our partners and our founding members right now, and some of the new initiatives and working groups that we're putting together. But most importantly, the white paper, which will tell all in terms of how the DAO is going to be structured, how it's going to work. A lot of the initiatives that we're bringing to the market tied to the token itself. And we're just very excited for the release of the white paper itself. So definitely stay up to date via our newsletter that you can subscribe to at rwaf.xyz.
I'm already subscribed, and I'm going to be waiting anxiously for that white paper to drop. And so, very exciting work you guys are doing over at the RWAF and STM. So, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us more about it. For everyone listening, this has been Infineo's bi-weekly real-world asset tokenization space, where we like to have on the most innovative companies in the space and highlight what they're doing. Today, you heard us highlight Real World Asset Foundation with their founder, Herwig Konings. And our next space will be on December 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern again. And we'll be having Gaffy on. And we really hope to see you there. If you'd like to stay up to date with Infineo, we have our newsletter on our website. You can get directly there by going to infineo.ai /# newsletter. Again, that's infineo.ai /# newsletter. And we're always posting everything on our X here. So if you want to just give us a follow and stay up to date here, that's also a good way to do it. We hope to see you again on December 10th. Everyone have happy holidays. And again, thank you so much, Herwig, for it. And thank you to you guys for listening in today.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for listening, and thanks for having us, Jackson and the Infineo team. Anyone who follows the Security Token Show, they know how I like to end it. Happy tokenizing, everyone.
Happy tokenizing. Talk soon.
An RWA, like basically is a payments token. You had 3 years to figure out what rules would end up applying to it. Which would obviously be a very cool approach to, kind of the crypto markets regulation and enforcement. So it's the expectation that whoever it is probably not going to be doing any enforcement actions. And one would hope that the lawsuits against Kraken, Coinbase, and some of the Gemini and some of the others, Uniswap, they get dropped on day one. That would be sort of what everybody hopes and a telling sign of what's to come for regulation in the US. In Europe, there's a lot of excitement on the recent MiCA rules, MiCA, however you want to say it, codifying and coming together. This is sort of helping create a lot of confidence in the markets over there about issuing RWAs, which is something that's missing in these and something that isn't quite clear in Singapore and other parts of Asia, even though those are really pro and supportive jurisdictions. Same with Spain and the UK having their own sandboxes, Switzerland, and there's a lot of activity coming out of Italy now with Block Invest. So you get the idea that, okay, a wrestler around them, they may have a little bit of a head start in terms of the infrastructure now. Now, the question comes down to, can they attract the assets and the traders and the investors, if you will, to their jurisdictions in time before the U.S., continues to hold its dominance in the capital market side, especially with a new potential atmosphere and new potential rules coming to the market. Again, all this will play out over the next year, most likely. Consider.
That's incredible, and that's a really great insight or great overview of the U.S. and Europe there. I'm curious if you've seen any recent success stories or developments come out of Asia or the Middle East, just as we wrap things up here.
Yeah, the Middle East is great. They're definitely super pro digital assets now, encouraging a lot of activity across Abu Dhabi, Project Diamond, and Coinbase. We'll hopefully have a lot of news around that soon enough. Obviously, Dubai has been very forward thinking, encouraging a lot of investment and activity around tokenization. And we see some stable coins like Tether release out of there. So they definitely see potential in the Middle East market adopting stable coins. So I think that's very smart. We also saw Tether itself announce Hadron. Not sure exactly how they want us to say it, but that's their own tokenization platform, which is a big deal, obviously, given that Tether is the largest RWA tokenizer in the world, outside of JP Morgan's repo network that does billions of dollars a day in transactions. I think nearly $1 trillion or over $1 trillion now. So that's a big deal to see what's going to come out of Tether in terms of their tokenization platform and who adopts that. And then if anything gets listed on Bitfinex, which is sort of Tether's sister company, even though I'm not sure if there's any official affiliation, but the CEO is the CTO there. That is licensed out of Kazakhstan and El Salvador, doing a lot of RWA deal there. So that's definitely something I think worth keeping an eye on. And then, as I mentioned, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, and Japan. Those are really the hotbeds of tokenization in Asia that are all worth keeping an eye on, because the regulators and the industry there have really doubled down on it and focused on it. Project Guardian out of Singapore continues to release a lot of new results, citing stuff for crypto natives, too much per se, but just a lot of activity that's going on over there. So that's hopefully a great way to end the show here.
Oh, that's perfect. We covered the whole world. We dove deep into the RWA Foundation, and we got into the latest with security tokens and real world asset tokenization. I don't know what else I would like to spend an hour. It was a space, Herwig, and thank you so much for joining us. As we close things out, if the audience would like to stay in contact with the Real World Asset Foundation or security token market, what's going to be the best way to do so? And are there any upcoming events or announcements we should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, everybody should definitely give us a follow right now to stay up to date on those things, because you can imagine, very similar to many other native crypto organizations, that there's a benefit to that. You want to stay up to date on announcements and releases and things like that. Obviously, our Telegram channel, same deal. You can find that in our description on our X account. So please go join us in the community, introduce yourself. And then RWAF.xyz is where you can stay updated. The real thing to stay tuned for right now is we'll be releasing highlighting our partners and our founding members right now, and some of the new initiatives and working groups that we're putting together. But most importantly, the white paper, which will tell all in terms of how the DAO is going to be structured, how it's going to work. A lot of the initiatives that we're bringing to the market tied to the token itself. And we're just very excited for the release of the white paper itself. So definitely stay up to date via our newsletter that you can subscribe to at rwaf.xyz.
I'm already subscribed and I'm going to be waiting anxiously for that white paper to drop. And so, very exciting work you guys are doing over at the RWAF and STM. So, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us more about it. For everyone listening, this has been Infineo's bi weekly real world asset tokenization space where we like to have on the most innovative companies in the space and highlight what they're doing. Today, you heard us highlight Real World Asset Foundation with their founder, Herwig Konings. And our next space will be on December 10th at 12 p.m. Eastern again. And we'll be having Daffy on. And we really hope to see you there. If you'd like to stay up to date with Infineo, we have our newsletter on our website. You can get directly there by going to infineo.ai /# newsletter. Again, that's infineo.ai / newsletter. And we're always posting everything on our X here. So if you want to just give us a follow and stay up to date here, that's also a good way to do it. We hope to see you again on December 10th. Everyone have happy holidays. And again, thank you so much, Herwig, for here. And thank you to you guys for listening in today.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for listening and thanks for having us, Jackson and the Infineo team. Anyone who follows the Security Token Show, they know how I like to end it. Happy tokenizing, everyone.
Happy tokenizing. Talk soon.